Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. I'm Tania and I'm joined with my wonderful co-host, Paul. Welcome, Paul. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much. How are you going today, Tania?
Yeah, it's a beautiful summer's day in November and I'm really excited to have a chat to you today. We're going to be talking about what separates providers from who is going to last and those who don't. Yeah, tell me where this episode came from, Paul, and what we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, look, we've I think we've seen a lot of providers who have built a lot of sustainable business processes. We've also talked to a lot of providers who have probably fought against bringing their business into the current climate, and I think we've both seen a massive split between people who move ahead and continue to innovate and move with the market, and people who are just going, this is the way we've always done it, this is the only way you can do it. And it's slowly killing businesses.
Yeah I think there is definitely two different types of providers, and for me it's like the ones I want to work with and the ones that I don't want to work with, but usually there's a common thread there, right? It's usually the people who do well are the ones who show up, that are giving it all, that are doing the right things, doing the prep, doing the work. And then there's ones that, can build a really good business, or not even good, build a profitable business quite quickly, but might be taking a whole lot of shortcuts.
Yeah, and I think there's way too many there's way too many people that are just satisfied with getting a fast result rather than a long-term result, because we all want to see the numbers on the screen. We all want to, and on the flip side, we all want to help as many people as possible as well. This is not just a numbers thing, but there's a way to do it that you're not going to end up completely burnt out or completely stripped of like your ability to operate, or just completely done with the industry as a whole. Because there's definitely people on both sides of that coin who are in it for the wrong reason, like they're just going in and trying to strip mine the industry, and other people who are genuinely there to help but not tackling it in the right way.
Yeah. So we brainstormed 5 characteristics of sustainable providers. The first one that really stood out for me was that they operate with structure, not chaos. And that's really around having good systems, their intake process, their onboarding, their incident management, their worker screening, service agreements, billing. All of that is systemized. It's not done by luck. It's not done by mistake or by accident. It has a very specific process and a way of being done. That's kind of the first thing that stood out for me. What was the first what was the second characteristic?
Well, they build capacity before they grow, and I think a lot of people kind of worry about the chicken or the egg. Like, do I need staff or do I need clients? But you can actually build that capacity before you start moving forward, so you're going to have a long-term view. So they're not rushing to scale, because everyone wants to be the big business and put out the big information and go, oh, I'm this big. But stabilizing your first few participants, which is a fantastic place to be able to build those systems and build that structure with your first few participants before it gets top heavy. Being able to hire ahead, and also building a leadership structure that isn't just friends because you've known each other, but actually a leadership structure that allows you to grow from there. And also, being able to have those things in place that are going to allow you to make those key decisions moving forward, rather than worrying about I call it sticky tape and clag glue inside of your head that make all the bits and pieces run. Because when you've got that first bit of capacity, you can grow a lot simpler.
Yeah. Yep. The next one for me is that they understand their numbers. That's like just really is the difference between a business that's going places and a business that's very short term. If they don't understand occupancy, their utilization, their margins, and even comparing margins at different registration groups, if they don't deeply understand their cost of service delivery or costs of their workforce, usually businesses that aren't doing well haven't got that level of clarity or transparency in their numbers. And it's a little bit of a sign to me of how sophisticated the business is how well do they truly understand their numbers, and how do they track their numbers, things like cash flow forecasts as an example. That's a really big giveaway for me of a very sustainable business.
Oh, look, I remember chatting with some providers a couple of years ago and they were asking me about, what should they spend in certain areas? And I said, what does your budget say? And they said, what budget? And I was just really, really worried at that point about, you haven't got a budget for your business. Look, one of the next things I think, and this is really important, I think you'll probably agree with me, is that they invest in compliance and quality early, and not because, I think a lot of people put this off because they fear the audit. I've definitely seen a lot of people really worried and get really stressed around the idea of audit. But knowing that your compliance not done right actually just burns through staff and clients, because it really does mean you're not systemizing things properly. And quality is your strategy, not a box tick, right? And when you have quality as a strategy, it infiltrates your hiring, it infiltrates how you market, it infiltrates your network, it infiltrates your systems and processes. And it has such a wider scope than just, yes, we're compliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And being compliant and going through audit can be different things, right? Like you can actually be compliant and be unregistered. That's the other thing, is that if you've made the business choice that actually registration's too expensive and doesn't make sense right now, doesn't mean you can't operate with the quality systems in place and you can't act like you are registered. And that means that whenever you decide to go down the audit pathway, you've got everything ready to go. And then
you're almost there anyway.
You're almost there. Yeah. Like I actually do quite often suggest that people wait before going through audit, because often that $10,000 of their first audit and, $6,000 to $10,000 every 18 months can put a lot of pressure on a business. And if they've got 3 clients in community access and a couple in gardening or cleaning, there's not enough cash flow coming in to cover that 10 grand. So maybe they've got 10 grand in savings. And when I talk about 10 grand, what I'm talking about is that's like the rough audit cost the first time to get your policies in place, your insurance is right, your company set up correctly, and pay for the auditor. Generally, you'll get a little bit of change for 10 grand, but not a lot. And so usually I would tell people not to go to audit till you have 10 grand in a profit account, and then decide if that's the best use of that money. But that doesn't mean you don't need to focus on quality, or that you can't focus on quality while you save up that money, and making sure that your intake is correct and your service agreements are correct, and that you're storing things in lines with the privacy agreements, and you're meeting your SHADS award compliance. Because when people talk about compliance, they often are just talking about the practice standards, but every business has ASIC requirements, ATO requirements, workers' comp requirements, or work cover requirements. There's lots of a SHADS award. All of those things are additional to the NDIS practice standards, and you need to be meeting all of those things as a business. And so, definitely starting with quality early is not, is a non-negotiable for me. The next one is about retaining staff and really focusing on culture and consistency. I believe that people stay because stay in roles where their expectations are clear. They're not constantly changing direction and getting seasick, when they're going from this way to this way all the time. They're building sustainable environments where workers understand what good looks like and why their work matters. And that's something that is a really big sign. If you find out retention rates of someone's business, that'll often show you who's going to be here long term and who won't.
Really good pressure test, right? Being able to see how their staff churn is looking like, and they go, yeah, we've got like clients coming in all the time, but if your staff is churning over, then you've got a clear problem that's not going to be sustainable. And everyone worries about the SHADS award, but like this is measurable over time across all different industries, and including in the NDIS space, is that people stay for culture, not for a pay packet. And when there's not a lot of wiggle room about what you can actually pay someone because of the margins, investing in your people, actually having like contact with them, and just because you're the owner doesn't mean you need to be separated up in a high hill. The strongest cultures have the owner, the visionary of the business, visibly or audibly available to the team on a semi-regular basis. And it's such a crucial component that we've built it into what we do with all the people we work with.
Yeah.
I think we've definitely found a few things over time, Tania, you and I, that make providers, we can almost tell where they're going to end up, because there's a few things we can see when we hear someone say certain things. We just know if you don't change that, you're going to have some serious problems. So one of those key areas I found that if someone's on a path to probably failure at some point, is they're just operating in a gray zone. There's no documentation. The reporting is lackluster at best. The team aren't accountable for the work they're doing, and everyone's always putting out fires more than actually leaning into the systems and processes. And those things always, you can't grow out of that. You can't go, I just need more clients, then I'll have more revenue to make this not work. That doesn't happen, and it never happens. And it will catch up with people eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. The next characteristic of providers who I see on the road to failure is that they grow quicker than their capacity. They sign 20 participants, but they have systems for 2, and chaos just reigns supreme, right? They just have so much chaos between not having things they need, not being able to deliver support, not being able to roster the shifts, not being able to actually deliver high quality service, and then poor communication with workers, staff, stakeholders. And they might get participants in the door, but then there's a very quick high turnover of those participants and the staff supporting them.
Yeah, it can be very, very problematic. Look, I think the next thing is really just, we looked at before around finances, but really just understanding the unit economics of their business. So, how they're pricing, even in this market, I'm seeing people playing with the price guide going, oh, I'm just going to charge this because they don't have enough funding or whatever it is. Or, they're pushing the boundaries on what they're paying. I think a lot of people avoid financial clarity because numbers scare them. When we talk about budget, for instance, people just don't do it because they're worried about what the outcome will be. But you can't do anything unless you know what it is, right?
Yes.
Owners underpaying themselves. That's why I love the whole idea of the profit first way of operating, is because you give yourself that capacity to do it. And when you are pressed and under stress and you have no finances, that's when bad decisions start to get made.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I see as well. And the NDIS has such a tight profit margin that, you sneeze and you lose money, or there's a payment delay and you're behind, or you have a vacancy, or, any of those things can really impact you in a big way. And that's where people start making bad decisions, not paying correctly, cutting corners, all of those things, as opposed to using something like the profit first model, where they work out their percentages, they work out their budgets. They, even if they're a SIL provider, they can actually then work out, having not just a budget for for a house and the business then a house, but each participant is their own cash center, and really making sure that they've figured out what the economics are at a really granular level.
Yeah, 100%.
The next one that we talked about was their staffing model is really reactive. So they're hiring when they're desperate, then they accept anyone, they throw people into shifts without right training, and this destroys the quality of service, but it also really impacts their profit margins.
Yeah, it is quite, I think people have seen it very much as a support workers market. Fewer support workers, and so people hire, we call it frenzy hiring, just trying to get anyone to fill a role, whether it's support work or in operations, and they haven't pre-built the system that they're going to use, and so they're going to go, they bring in maybe an ops manager and say, hey, build the system, and they go, I don't know, I've never built systems before. So they're handing on an area, or they're hiring support workers just to get someone. But we've got to, I think actually standing back and waiting for the right people is one of the key things you can do, because when you have the right team, they will build the business with you. But if you've got the wrong team because you just hired anyone, they're going to help it crumble a lot faster than it needs to.
Yeah.
And I think that, that then really leads us into how the businesses are leading. And leadership is, people say that people are born leaders. I don't really believe that at all. I believe if someone's following you, you're a leader, and you have a responsibility to learn how to lead better. And so a lot of people are inconsistent or absent or just like worried about how they come across, because I think we've definitely seen a lot of tall poppy syndrome. We've had those bosses who are those not nice people, and we don't want to be that person, so we just don't turn up at all, which ends us being that boss that's not nice to work with, right? And so it depends on their mood, on their energy level. If you're the leader, if you're the boss, if you're the employer, it's your job to cast vision, to actually get people around you, because without that stable direction, people will just go wherever. They're not going to be following a specific path.
Yeah. So we've now talked about the 5 characteristics of providers who are going to make it, and the 5 that we think are going to not make it. What do you think then makes providers able to stay in the game for long term? What's the first thing you can see?
Well, I mean, you've got to have a real business and not treat it like you've got another job, right? It's not a hustle. It's not, let's just see if this works. You can see if like a online market works, or Facebook, Facebook marketplace business is a side hustle. This is a real business where you really need to have a structured, documented process. And so when you have that in place, you've got a business that can grow and be sustainable, weather change, remain nimble for changes as well, but not just allowing it to be, oh, let's see if this works, because you're never going to put in the effort if you just kind of hope it's going to be a job that you can leave if it's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, the next one that I see is, again, the idea of embracing regulation rather than resisting it. So actually looking at the practice standards as the floor, not as the ceiling. They're a starting point. And that they know that the quality and safeguards, if they follow quality and safeguards, they're actually going to outlast people who then cut corners and try to do things the quick, easy, cheap, nasty way.
Yeah. And then I think we really need to look at this idea of culture in the business, because, it has been a bit of a dog-eat-dog kind of world, and it's not a healthy space to be. Thinking about how you're actually building sustainability into your workforce. If your team feels supported and trained and valued, they're going to provide better support, which is going to be better for your business. But if they're burnt out, they're not going to be great support workers, which means you're going to be losing staff and you're going to be losing clients.
Yeah, absolutely. What was the next one that we had?
It's just this idea of being able to build decision-making frameworks, because if you haven't got a really clear plan on how you're going to, weather changes and bits and pieces, you're going to have a real issue with knowing what's next and how to operate. I speak to a lot of people who just feel decision fatigue is just getting them all the time because they're having to make all these different decisions. But you need a process for problem solving and, making sure that problems are resolved fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that one too. The one that's definitely up my alley is like really fast adaptation. Providers who wait too long miss opportunities. You really need to be able to be lean and agile and shift as things shift. And, when we've been discussing this, I've been sitting here thinking about, well, what about all those large not-for-profits? What about those not-for-profits? They definitely care about regulation. They definitely do the things that we would expect a provider to do. They're very long-term. But where they fall down is their ability that they can adapt, their leanness, their agileness, their ability to move quickly and change things as the sector changes. And I really think that that's one of the main reasons that so many not-for-profits are falling over at the moment, is just the amount of time it takes them to do things, the amount of bureaucracy internally, the amount of extra documents that these nimble, small and medium businesses just don't even have to think about. They don't have that. We've always done it this way. We've been running 150 years and we've always done it that way. So how could we possibly not do it that way? So yeah, I think fast adaptation is really a really strong sign of someone who's going to go well, especially because of the huge number of regulatory, contractual changes in the space at the moment. But we have seen it ongoing since the scheme rolled out.
100%. It's just, are you Blockbuster, where you just sit in that one way of doing things, or are you Netflix, who is actually leading the way in the new options of how you're going to do business? I think there's a few questions we could leave people with, and just be able to ask themselves these couple of questions where they can go, right, if this is going to help me, how can I make this work? What are the questions I need to be asking? And I think the first one is, and it might even be a question that you've asked yourself, is could my business run for a week without me? Could I take 7 days and the business will run? I think it's a really good indicator if you've got a business or a job.
Yes, absolutely. I love that analogy. Have you got a business or have you got a job? I think that really speaks to a lot of the issues in businesses who don't make it long term. The next question that I'd have people ask themselves is, do I know my true cost to deliver each service? As we talked about before, I think that's vital.
Yeah. And then, do I have a stable, documented intake process, or is it just held together with sticky tape? And if I'm not there, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And I guess you could sub intake process with any process, right? Really do have stable processes, which leads to the next question, which is, could I pass an audit tomorrow? If you have the NDIS Commission knock on your door tomorrow for an unannounced visit, would you pass? If not, there's an area of improvement right there.
100%. I love this one because it's just asking, do your workers know what good looks like? Do they know what awesome looks like? Or have we assumed that they have the same standards as us? And so not actually gone, this is what our awesome level of support looks like.
Yeah. The next one is, do I have predictable revenue and predictable quality? Are there mechanisms in place making sure that revenue is going to come through each and every day or week? And that there's systems in place to ensure that quality happens each and every day?
Look, I think they need to make sure that's happening because we're just seeing it being questioned so much more. And last one, for you as the leader, do I lead consistently, or only when things implode do I turn up? Proactively leading is always going to help you grow your business better.
Yes. And I guess if someone's answered no to these, then there's concern, right? There's sustainability would be at risk, and they really need to start to do some work on their business, on their cost of delivery, on their processes, on their governance or their management, leadership. to make sure that they have a really strong foundation as things continue to shift in the space.
Yeah, 100%. So don't let your business just operate how it has, because that's how we've seen a lot of providers really struggle. Always be looking at, how can I be a better leader? How can we make sure our systems and processes are working really well? Are we operating compliant all the time? Do my team know what awesome looks like? Awesome questions. Tania, how can they get some help with this?
Look, I think, if they need help with systems and processes, that's definitely something that I can help with. We do things like process mapping workshops where we work out what your processes are. But I think just even internally, they should be doing internal audits. And I don't mean against practice standards. I mean, they should be health checking their business. They should be meeting with accountants. They should be meeting with team. They should be meeting with their HR teams. They should be meeting with people like me and you for support if they need help, and realize that longevity is not a secret. Sustainable providers follow very simple disciplines consistently. They work out their cadences, they know what's important, and they do what's important, not just what's urgent. And I think that for me, that makes the difference, is someone that's working through systematically the important things to keep their business moving ahead versus someone who's in firefighting mode.
So good. Yeah. And not everything has to be done now, right? Just like you said, what's urgent versus what's important. Look, thank you so much for listening here, guys. We just wanted to go through and highlight some of these key areas and really pose those questions so you can do a bit of that quick audit yourself and really understand where you're at and what your next steps are to make sure that you're going to be one of the sustainable providers that continue to grow and help more people. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you guys again next Tuesday.
See you later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.